Thank you for coming today. Today's a very important day. Today is to save the Bronx Post Office. My name is Joseph Martyr, and I'm the director of the Bronx of New York Metro Postal Union. I am proud to present the men and women, members of our union, who serve 1.4 million residents of the Bronx in the post office throughout this great borough. While postal workers may be the target of those who want to destroy the Postal Service, it is the people of the Bronx, the people we serve, who will be the victims. We are here today to find out what can we do to stop this madness. We will be marching over to the Bronx General Post Office for People Speak Out. And now to begin our program, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Chuck Slacken.
Hello, everybody. Hello. Thank you for coming. Also, another thing is turn off your cell phones or put them on vibrate because we'll hear it and I'll be distracted. I'm going to change the program a little bit, and we'd like to introduce someone who's been a friend. There are people who talk the talk, and there are people who walk the walk. And has come to the fight to save the Postal Service, and particularly Bronx GPO. He hasn't only been the representative for the 15th Congressional District, he's been the representative of everybody who uses the post office and works for the post office. We're proud to welcome him here today, Congressman Jose E. Serrano.
Thank you, Chuck. Thank you so much. And first, let me apologize for the fact that as soon as I speak, I will be leaving you. But it is Saturday. And for members of Congress, Saturday means a few events that you can't attend during the week when you're in Washington. And it also means, in all honesty, and I can't believe I'm saying this in front of cameras, you know, doing the laundry and doing the grocery shopping and so on. So I'm being as honest as I can be. No different than all Americans. You know, Saturday is the day when we get everything done. So I will leave as soon as I speak. But I wanted to, before I speak directly to our issue, give you a quick recap of what is happening in Washington, because it plays directly into the behavior, the attitude, the lack of vision in terms of the post office and so many issues. I am so sad to tell you that in my 39 years of public office, let me do the routine that Julio Pavon has heard me do year after year, I'm now the longest serving elected official in the history of the Bronx, longer than Bruckner, and he's got a highway named after him, so maybe we should talk about an alleyway or something. And in terms of those of us who identify as Americans and Puerto Rican, the longest serving in the history of the United States. When I got elected, Bean was mayor, Nixon was president, the Mets were a winning team and the Yankees were not. In fact, I think we're getting to that point, right? Where the Mets will be a winning team and the Yankees will not be. Yesterday, we cut $40 billion in SNAP, food stamp program, from our budget. In this crazy desire to bring the budget, I think, not sarcastically, but honestly, down to zero, and go back and tell a small group of Tea Party people that you were part of bringing the budget down to zero. And what we're going through in Washington is scary in the sense that they've been able to get so much support, those who believe in that philosophy, for this budget cutting, never paying attention that this country became the greatest country on earth because, yes, every so often we cut the budget, but a lot of times we were investing. They call it spending. We were investing. We were investing in roads. We were investing in services. We were investing in research. Across the board, everything gets cut. And the reason you should know that there's this stalemate now that may lead to government shutdown is that painfully as it was, we had agreed on some serious cuts to which Paul Ryan, the gentleman who ran for vice president, went on his own then and reduced that. I'm telling you what many of you already know, but you had to hear it. Again, reduced it or increased it above the original painfully agreed to budget cuts. And so now it's either we throw the country away or we stand up for a fight. Then there is something else, this obsession. Now, as an elected official who's been around as many years as I told you, I should be able to come before you and say, I know it all. I don't understand this obsession with getting rid of the Affordable Care Act, with Obamacare. I don't understand it. Yesterday, they voted for the 43rd time to get rid of it. The Senate has said for the 43rd time, it's not going anywhere. The bill passed the House. The bill passed the Senate. The bill was signed by the President, and the Supreme Court ruled on it. Hello? Move on. It is what it is. Will it be a perfect bill? No. Will we need to maneuver some things, all of us? Yes. But, you know, those of you that are old enough, and I don't think anyone here is old enough for one of them, they said the same thing about Social Security, that it wasn't going to work. And now trying to get rid of Social Security. And there are many of us here who remember they said the same thing about Medicare. And I bet you that 20 years from now, it'll be Social Security, Medicare, and Obamacare. And that will be his legacy. So I don't see Obamacare as an insult. I see it as a positive that they've attached his name to this wonderful program. But there's this obsession. Here's the part that troubles me the most. And I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings here, anybody that has a little gray hair like me or a lot of gray hair. If the people who are doing all these things in Congress were people in their 80s or something, you would say, angry, they've been around a long time, they've seen a lot, whatever. But the so-called Tea Party are relatively young people. Young people who believe that the government has to be broken to a point where it doesn't function. If I was to be nasty, I would say that somewhere in their philosophy, misguided philosophy, they really believe that we don't need a government. That we don't need a government. Therefore, we don't need agencies. Which brings us then to the Postal Service. Number one, the Postal Service, like immigration reform, should be comprehensive in its fix. It should not be piecemeal. You do not resolve the issue of the Postal Service by selling the General Postal Office at 149th Street. That doesn't even dent the issue. The problem you have is that you're the only group in the history of the world that has to pay benefits 75 years ahead of time like no one else has to. That's what we have to attach to. We have to look at the whole Postal Service and try to fix the issue. Not to run away from it and not to do it piecemeal. And so I sit as the top Democrat. I used to be the chairman, but you know, we lost the House because they redistributed Texas and some other states. I sit on the committee called Financial Services Appropriations. The Appropriations Committee is composed of 12 subcommittees. Each one puts a bill together. At the end of the year, that becomes the whole appropriations process. So I sit on Financial Services, which amongst other things oversees, as far as you do oversee the Postal Service. And one of the victories I've had there is the 6-day delivery, where I continuously put a language in saying there has to be 6-day delivery. Because again, that's one of those piecemeal things where they attack that and then they attack something else. What's really a contradiction, and I'll end soon here. What's really a contradiction is the biggest argument you hear in Washington from the opposition is we've got to create jobs. We've got to create jobs. We all agree on that. You create jobs by shutting down agencies. You create jobs by cutting budgets to the point where federal workers have to be let go. You create jobs by killing the Postal Service to the point where you have to lay off thousands of people that will never come back. That's not the way you create jobs. They call it spending. We call it investment. We don't have a highway bill right now. We were going to get a 5-year highway bill. We don't have one. If we did, you know what that does to the economy. You know what it did to the economy, thank God, to save the auto industry. That worked. People attacked that. It worked. So what I continue to do is to be your voice in making sure that, one, the Postal Service gets handled in a comprehensive way. Two, and very important to me, which is really number one, that those of you who represent different parts of labor within the Postal Service get the respect that you deserve. Congress cannot continuously say they're the problem. No, they're not the problem. Whenever you fight on behalf of a worker, you're not the problem, you're part of the solution. Because if it was up to some people, workers would not have no rights in this country and would not have a decent salary. You know that to be a fact. And next, I've tried to make sure that certain things happen within the bill that I work on every year to make sure that we have some protection. So the last thing I've done, which actually passed a committee led by a Republican, Mr. Crenshaw, and it's part now of the discussion as to what the Congress will do, but it passed the committee, is language that I put in saying that no post office building can be sold until the Inspector General of the Postal Service has reviewed the whole procedure and signs off or understands that everybody who is supposed to be in on that decision has been consulted. And that means the community too. Because to this community, that building is more than a building. Since the day I came from Puerto Rico in I was 6 years old. I think Eisenhower was president or somebody like that. I always measure my life by who was president, you know? I think Eisenhower was president. Stevenson was trying to get elected. Since that day, that building has been more than a post office. It's part of this community. Then we know about the murals inside. We have to teach our young people what those murals are about. They're not just, although it's not just, an artist painting something. It was during a difficult time when government employed and commissioned people who had a hard time to paint. So we have to save the murals. We have to save the post office. We can't stop the sale. And I'm not, I'm not anti-business, but you know how many people are hovering over that building right now saying, oh, what a wonderful mall it would make, or I don't know, something, right? Something crazy. We're doing some crazy things in the Bronx to begin with, but, and we don't need that. And so, number one, I'm committed to saving the building. I'm committed to saving the Postal Service. I'm committing to a comprehensive approach. I'm committed to making sure that the 6-day delivery continues, and I'm committed to making sure that the Inspector General is involved. That is my commitment to you. I thank you for the support you always give me and the respect you always show me. And I have to tell you that I'm still one of the few people around who still pays a lot of bills by mail. I don't know if that makes me old-fashioned or something, but I believe in the service. And lastly, the Postal Service later has to then also become innovative and understand that the world has changed and how to deal with it. I mean, I played a major role, and Julio will laugh at this because he knows who I am, in making sure Frank Sinatra had a stamp. This day, I don't think they did as much as they should have done to sell that stamp, which would have been a big seller, but it's a great stamp, a great ceremony. So I'm with you. I'm here with you today. I'm on my way to other events, but please understand that you continue to have a friend in Congressman Serrano, and we'll do whatever we have to do the right thing by the Postal Service. Thank you.
Thank you, Congressman Serrano. When we put this thing together, we put it together pretty quickly, One of the people that we wanted to invite was Mark Jameson. People read SaveThePostOffice.com, they're familiar with who he is. He's probably, if not, he's the leading writer, one of the leading writers in the country about the entire issue, because he sees things so clearly. And actually, since he couldn't come here today because he's in North Carolina, one of the handouts we gave is called Democracy Rests Finally Upon Us, Saving the Bronx General Post Office. It's gone pretty far around the internet and is definitely worth reading for those who are familiar with the issue and people who are just first finding out about it. But he asked me to make a statement because he really wanted to be a part of this, so I'll read this quickly from Mark Jameson, who's a columnist for SaveThePostOffice.com and also a retired postmaster. I am sorry I'm unable to attend the rally today. I was employed by the Postal Service for nearly 30 years as a postmaster in a small town in North Carolina. I became very aware of the meaning of the Postal Service to the average American. The Postal Service represents our highest aspirations as a nation. It is infrastructure designed to help maintain our democracy. Its mission is to bind the nation together, to help create ties that connect individuals and communities across this country. Today, the Postal Service is under assault. The efforts to destroy the Postal Service should concern every American because they strike at our very heart. We're being told that the men and women who deliver the mails are no longer valuable. We're told that grand structures like the Bronx Post Office are no longer valuable. All across America, average people and communities are being cast aside in the name of efficiency, but the assault that is destroying jobs, that is destroying the institutions that support us, that bind our nation together, is not efficient. It is nothing more than simple greed. A nation that was born in opportunity and equality is becoming a nation where the benefits are reserved for the few. I have devoted most of my effort over the last 5 years to fighting this lie that is being perpetrated upon us. This most important of institutions, the Postal Service, must not be degraded from mere greed. Communities should not be cast aside, and neither should those who work for a living. Your presence here today, your defense of this building that represents so much, is an indication that we will not stand in silence while an ethic that values greed and profit over people and communities is foisted upon us. Your commitment to the vision and the mission of a postal service that binds the nation together is proof that greed cannot and will not win. Mark Jameson. Thank you, and we'll make sure that he sees the tape. Any other applause? So at this point, okay, a big part of this meeting, the reason that we wanted to have it, particularly have it indoors, to make sure that these next presentations could be made if the weather was good or bad. So I will introduce our guest who came in from California for today at our own expense to speak to you because of the importance of what's going on. We put this together to make sure we had people from the community, people from the unions representing the workers, the elected officials who've been out there doing stuff for us. We had one. And people, allies of ours. How many people have looked at SaveThePostOffice.com? So you're familiar with the work of Steve Hutkins, who also couldn't be here today, but has given us so much, and we thank him. It's through Steve Hutkins I met Jacqueline McCormick. She called me one day. She said, "I'm calling from Berkeley. We're fighting for our post office out here." And we put together something called the National Postal Collaborative. And I guess there's nobody better to tell us about that than Jacqueline McCormick. She'll also talk about the fact that Dr. Gray Gretchen couldn't be here, what a slideshow is. So let's have a big Bronx and New York welcome for Jacqueline McCormick.
Welcome, Bronx, and hello from Berkeley, California. I'm so happy to be here today because what we're fighting on a national basis is so important for the legacy which the post office is for us as a nation. It's so much more than just the buildings, and I don't need to go into this. I don't need to give my rev-up speech because I'm preaching to the choir with the people that are in this audience. But I want to tell you a little bit about what our group is doing, how we got formed, and what our struggle is, and how difficult it is for us, and how all of us can do something to help us in this endeavor. I was brought in initially when the sale of the Berkeley Post Office was announced, around the same time as the Bronx, actually, by a group of people who said, look, Jackie, we need to get a lawyer who, we can maybe get an injunction against the sale of the post office. Can you help us do this? So, oh yeah, that won't be a problem. Let's reach out to my network and see what we can do about getting someone to help us with this. Well, 24 lawyers later, we finally called Ralph Nader's office because Greg Brecken had met with Ralph, and we were then introduced to a firm and made a connection with a firm called Ford and Huff. And what we didn't know was that particular firm has on staff the former general counsel of the U.S. Postal Service. So we've engaged Hal Hughes and Adam Ford to fight for us on a national basis, and they're doing this in small towns, in one particular in Utah right now, where there's a deal that is so greasy and so bad that the post office has entered into on a sale that it's shocking. So we got this team together and we thought, where can we reach out where we could possibly get some relief in the court system in jurisdictions, in federal court jurisdictions that are very pro-historic preservation. And New York is one of them, and California, North and South is the other. So we initially started looking at fighting for Berkeley, La Jolla, and the Bronx. And we are, raising money to do that and, paying our lawyers through the whole process. And as a result of our coming forward, the post office has now cleverly stalled kind of all those sales. But we know that in particular in the case of Berkeley, they're negotiating with a deal behind the scenes. And this became even more clear yesterday when I got a phone call from a gentleman I spoke to many months ago from New Haven, Connecticut. The Stamford Post Office was listed for sale almost a year ago. A local art group tried to buy it. A developer stepped in and was able to get it into contract for $2 million less than the arts program had offered. He's planning on tearing the building down or using a portion of it for a lobby and building 2 high-rise condominium units projects on that particular site. As the post office is doing in many of these locations, as they are in the Bronx and in Berkeley and La Jolla, they're deeming these relocations, which means they don't have the critical review of the Postal Regulatory Commission. Well, in the case of the Connecticut Post Office, this was supposed to be a relocation. They have not identified a relocation site yet, because if it's a closure, it goes through a lot more stringent steps. This last Tuesday in Stamford, Connecticut, they announced that that post office was closing Friday. That's yesterday. The post office closed in 3 days. There is no alternative for those post office box patrons. Everybody else has been directed to other post offices. The contract with the developer is scheduled to close next Wednesday. We found it out through the real estate agent. There has never been an announcement. No one has ever been notified. We're mobilized. We're going to try and get an injunction over the next 3 days, which means our lawyers are working overtime this weekend. This is really difficult. And we need boots on the ground. We need people like you who are part of the system to let us know when these things are happening. And we need people like you, the people that are in these rooms. Every single person here has a network. You have relatives throughout the country. You have friends in your community. We need to get the word out of what's happening. Not just for these buildings, that the buildings are being sold, but the post office itself is being dismantled piece by piece. The legacy that was given to us, entrusted in our Constitution, is being dismantled a little bit at a time. It's a national resource for the people of the United States. It should not be resolved. It is no different. And the monuments that were built to house the post office are no different than the monuments that exist on the Washington Mall or in Yellowstone National Park. And I can rue the day, and I can see it coming unless we stop the progress of this, where we will have Yellowstone brought to you by AT&T. That's the direction that we're heading. Everything is becoming privatized. These are our national resources. The architecture, the buildings, the art that's in our post office buildings is owned by the people of the United States. Our tax dollars pay for these buildings. The work of our parents and our grandparents during the Great Depression put the art in those buildings. They built 1,500 post offices during that period of time. They put people back to work. People who had money in their pockets then that was able to then revive the economy. Every time you cut a service, as Congressman Serrano was saying, every time you cut a program to rebuild America, you're taking money out of someone's pocket that keeps our economy going. The short-sightedness of these actions is appalling. And we will not stop until we force the post office to stop selling these buildings so we can be ensured that we have a monument to a guarantee that was given to us in the Constitution, and that the post office remains intact, because that's what those buildings symbolize. They're a memorial to the Postal Service. They're a memorial to something that was, again, delivered to us through our Constitution, and they should not be demolished. So it's our website. We have a petition to stop the sale of these post offices. But the bigger piece of it is raising the funds, keeping this legal, to be able to keep this legal fight going. And the only way we can do that is to build a network of people to get it done. So I'm looking to all of you to hopefully get that, help us get that done. In California, we're fortunate that in Berkeley, our mayor happens to also be married to our senator, which, you know, you could take that in a lot of ways, but anyway. She and our local assembly person has actually introduced legislation that was passed in both the Senate and the House in the state of California that essentially says we will not allow historic post offices to be sold. We are going to work federally to ensure that they roll back the 75-year pre-funding of liabilities. There's 4 or 5 specific points. So we're going to try and connect with the New York State Legislature to see if they can do the same thing. I'm going to get that information to my friend Julio and to Congressman Serrano. So if we can't start doing the same thing on a state-by-state basis, again, we might get some momentum behind us. So that's what we're up to. That's what we've been doing. We're standing poised to file our lawsuits in federal court as soon as one of these sales is announced, or they officially put these 3 post offices on the block. But in the meantime, we're working on the New Haven project. So if we could dim the lights a little bit, I'm going to put on my split personality. I'm going to be Gray right now. Gray actually, back a little bit. Somebody move me. Gray Brecken is a professor at University of California, Berkeley, and his specialty is in New Deal art and New Deal artwork. And Gray was actually the gentleman who came to me initially and said, "Can you help us fight these post offices?" He was doing some research at the Stanford Library earlier this year, probably January, February, and he fell and ruined his knee and had surgery and then fell again in an airport. We're not going to let Gray go out of the house anymore this past week. So I get to present Gray's slideshow. One of the big reasons that, we believe one of the big reasons that these post offices are being sold is due to a relationship with the real estate company who's in charge of these sales. And they're actually designated and identifying the post offices that have the greatest value for the USPS. The chairman of CB Richard Ellis, which is the real estate firm that is selling these buildings, happens to be Richard Blum, who's the husband of Dianne Feinstein. A little bit of a conflict of interest there. And the struggle that we're having in California is that relationship is so strong, the media actually stays silent on these issues. There was a publication that came out this week called Going Postal by a gentleman by the name of Peter Byrne, which basically explains all of this. But these are some of the buildings that have currently been sold or are pending sale. Modesto, that's the interior New Deal artwork in those buildings. In that building, it was relocated and then sold. Ukiah, little town in Northern California, that's had a beautiful New Deal mural in it, which was removed, quote unquote, restored, and then loaned, in quotes, to the new owner. Now, if this is a GSA building, loans can only occur for a year, and then it has to be returned to the public. This is loaned in perpetuity. You'll hear more about this in some of these other post offices that have been sold. There were 5,000 petition signatures in Ukiah to save this post office. No one is listening to us. That's the mural. Bethesda, Maryland. This building has been closed and sold. It's chained, and the interior is deteriorating, and it's filled with murals. Crockett, California, closed, deteriorated, trashed. Venice, California. There was a big effort to try and to save this post office. A lot of money in that particular area of California, kind of Santa Monica area, has this fabulous mural in it. This building was sold to Joel Silver, who's a producer. And what the post office is doing is it's quote unquote putting covenants on these artworks. So therefore they always have to remain accessible to the public. And this is the way the post office is presenting this along with the Historic Trust. Well, we're going to put covenants on these buildings so this artwork will always be available because we recognize that the public paid for this artwork and they need to be able to see these. But this is what happened in the case of Venice. Because California and the National Trust doesn't have the resources to maintain these covenants, the LA Conservancy took this over. And the deal that was entered into with Mr. Joel Silver is that 6 times a year for 1 hour, people can view this mural. That's what we're facing. That's why this has got to stop. Redlands, California. Sale pending. This is a closure, actually. That's the interior of this building. And this is Carrie. Carrie is single-handedly trying to stop the closure of this post office. She has no resources and no help. There are people like this all over the country. We just need to get behind them and show them our support. Camas, Washington. See the sign, CB Richard Ellis for sale. This is the opportunity you have, an opportunity to buy a historic post office. Reading, Massachusetts, sale pending. Annapolis, Maryland, sale pending. Berkeley, California, sale pending. And that's who's managing it. And there they are. There's Richard Bloom, there's Dianne Feinstein. It's sad, it breaks my heart. post office DC was sold to Donald Trump, and he's turning it into a hotel. This is a great quote. The post office is a visible form of the federal government to every community and to every citizen. Its hand is the only one that touches the local life, social interests, and business concerns of every neighborhood. And there's a post office in the smallest hamlet of every town in our United States. There's Eleanor Roosevelt on the left in a mural. And this is, again, during the New Deal. The gentleman sitting on the sideboard of that car is Franklin Delano Roosevelt. 100 years from now, my administration will be known for its art, not for its relief. That is how important the artwork was to him that was placed in these buildings. And that is one of our arguments in our lawsuit, that the public trust that's enveloped in these buildings needs to be maintained. And we know Mr. Donahoe, who will say the post office is the first to acknowledge the importance of its historic preservation. Yes, 6 days a week, 6 times a year, which is why we're going through the lengthened transparent process to assure they are protected before they are sold, just like it was in New Haven. 3 days. The symbol of our federal government and our local pride. They're America's piazzas, they really are. They really are, they're incredible muscle. Look at the detail in some of these post offices. It's just, it is an absolute crime to think that these could fall in hands other than those of the American people. I don't know how many of you have seen some of these. They're just incredible, the artwork and the metalwork. Eugene, Oregon, sale pending. Sculpture. Much of the artwork that's in the buildings is very specific to those locations, and it has to do with putting people back to work and the work that's done in those communities. Tracy's, the rail yards, Martinez, California's Hispanic workers, Monterey, Spanish Inquisition, our founding fathers of Poughkeepsie, Phoenix, California, the Southwest, Spanish conquerors, Rincon Annex, San Francisco. This is one building the post office will point to that talks about creative and historic reuse and preservation. But it is the only successful project, and it is still open to the public with many government service offices inside. Grape harvesting, cattle, farming, ranching. Santa Cruz is big on local produce. These are all artwork that was created in the 30s. Metal workers, farm workers, orchards. And these are some of our favorite, because this points to, and this is why it's so specific, this points to and idolizes the postal worker, delivering the mail into the boxes, into the planes, in different areas of the country with the cactus, in the tropics, in the north, by stage, by horseback, and in the snow. We love this one. It talks about just the determination of the people to get the mail to the public. sculpture, and that says, "All mankind truth abode on Freedom Road." We, the people, we own these buildings and the art, and we're losing them while the press sleeps. This is a rally in Berkeley. Motley Crue. That's Save the Berkeley Post Office website address. That's a city council meeting. The gentleman in the very front row in the center is Brian Turner. He's with the National Historic Trust. Harvey Smith is on the right of him, the gentleman with the beard. He's part of the New Deal group. The National Post Office Collaborative website, and that's it. Here we go. Thank you so much. Again, in closing, you're the ones that are going to get the word out there. It's only, we have to do it. We have to do it one step at a time, and we're getting there. We're getting some momentum. So I thank you so much for your being here today and all the work that you guys do on a daily basis and for helping support our cause. Thanks.
Thank you, Jacqueline. Jacqueline McCormick, coming in from California. Let's give her another round of applause. We are on a tight schedule here because Lincoln Hospital is very good to us getting this auditorium at last minute almost. So I'm going to ask the speakers to be brief, but the next speaker is well, it's been over a year now, but he certainly revitalized our local in the New York Metro Area Postal Union. He's a large part of the reason that we're involved in all the stuff that we're doing now, and I'd like to have him come up and say a few words. Introduce to you the president of the New York Metro Area Postal Union of the APW, Jonathan Smith.
Looks like I got 2 minutes before I can say good afternoon. Thank you, everybody, for coming out. Thank you, Jackie, so much. We realize that our most powerful tool is information. And as we get more information, we get the tools that we need to fight this battle. Probably a lot of you, before you came here today, maybe you did not realize the seriousness of our struggle. But when we look at the Bronx GPO and we compare it to a lot of these other post offices that's closing, do we think we're any different now? The post office is very serious, and I wrote down a few thoughts when I was coming up here that I want to share with you real quick because I want to bring some of our distinguished guests up to the podium. But as you realize, there was not a lot of politicians invited to this event. Why? Because this event is not about the flashy speeches. This event is not about people getting elected. This is about correcting a bad situation. And what made me so sad is when we were out there the other week with the fast food workers, we heard all these beautiful speeches. But what we're about is action. Talk is cheap. And the message that we want to give out, if New York Metro throws an event, and we hope that the rest of labor will recognize this, that if you politicians want to get to this podium, you have to earn the right. And it's going to take more than speeches to do that. Now I want to talk to you about what's really upsetting me because as many of you know that have heard me speak before, that I get up here and I tell you how mad I am, when I'm still mad. I'm angry. I'm angry at the lies. Because what they're trying to do is they're trying to destroy the post office on a bunch of lies. And they're trying to play the blame game. And the blame game is blame the economy. Blame the Republicans, blame the Democrats. But then it comes down to blame the workers and blame the community. They want to do anything but take responsibility for action that they took that caused this mess in the first place. Well, we need to hold them accountable. And how do we hold them accountable? We hold them accountable at the voters' box. Martin Luther King said the most important steps that you could ever take is those few steps to the election box. I'm ready to take it. I'm ready to make the changes that's necessary. I'm ready to support those that walk the walk and not talk the talk. If you look in New York Metro's magazine, we have taken a position of leadership. We have given our members an idea of who to vote for, not only within our local, but within our community. It's time for the people to take the community back and let the politicians know who they work for. See, the thing about it is they are good at lies. Because the first lies, they told you about weapons of mass destruction. Have you found any of them? They told you the lie about Obamacare is no good. Death camps. Do you really believe that? Because the sad thing about it is every congressman got lifetime health insurance as soon as he went. Why can't we have the right to the same thing that they have? What happened to we the people? They told you Social Security has got to go. It's killing this country. These are the lies that they keep promulgating day in and day out. I can remember the ultimate lie. When one politician was complaining about another politician being a citizen and said, "Show me your birth certificate." And then he said, "Well, show me your income tax statement." He said, "I can't do that." See, the thing about it is they hide behind the lies because we are not holding them accountable. See, as a labor organization, we have to take our rightful right in the community. We have to take our community back. See, the thing about it is they don't talk about the real story. See, I don't know about you, but when anthrax hit, the mail got through. When Sandy hit, the mail got through. No matter what calamity came, the postal worker was there and was proud to be there. Unlike these politicians, we hold to our creed. And our creed is simply, we deliver. We deliver. And we have to keep delivering. But we have to deliver on the promise that we made to the community. This is not a battle about the postal worker's job. This is a battle about the senior citizen that needs someplace to go to get their medicine. This is a battle about the small business worker that can't compete with these large conglomerates. This is a battle about what we deserve, because unfortunately, it seems like a lot of these post offices that are closing are in the poorest communities. I don't think that's by accident. What they're trying to say to us is we don't count. Well, I'm here to tell you that as a labor organization, we have to take back our responsibility. When they attack our contract, we fight. When they attack our wages, we fight. When they attack our post office, we fight. When they attack our community, we fight. No longer can we sit back and talk mad. Now it's time to be mad. And how do you show that you're mad? We have to get out in the streets. We have to let the public know and change the conversation. We have to reframe the issue to let the people know, hey, they're trying to take away a service that not only you earn, but you deserve. See, now, no time in the argument has it ever come up. Do we deliver? Yes, we do. Do we deliver? Yes, we do. Do we deliver?
Yes, we do.
Well, we have to deliver more than mail now. We have to deliver our bodies in front of these post offices. We have to deliver on the election line. We have to deliver on the phone calls to these politicians to tell them that if they don't change, something will change. I promise you that. Why? Because we deliver. I just want to have a conversation with you. And the conversation I want to have with you, because this is not about making speeches. The conversation that I want to have with you is, when is enough going to be enough? When are you going to get sick and tired of being sick and tired? I'm ready to leave. I'm ready to go to war. Because the thing about it is, when Donahoe decided that he was going to go to Congress and decided that he was going to break our no layoff clause, when they sat up there and they had told the American people that the Postal Service was in dire trouble because of UPS, FedEx, email, and all these lies they tried to tell the people, what they did was not give a message, but what they did was declare war. It's war. It's time to go to war. The battle is on. The veterans were promised a job. We were promised a decent way to make a living. Everybody is not able to go to college, and they need a decent way to make a living and to raise a family. And I can tell you that is not a dream, because my grandfather was a postal worker, and I'm standing here because of him. So if you're ready, let's go. When we leave here, let's make this the first march of many marches. Let's get our money together and pull our money together to help the legal cause. Let's go to battle with more than our talk. It's time to walk the walk. I'm tired and I'm mad. I'm fired up and I'm ready. I can't take it anymore. I'm fired up.
Can't take it anymore.
I'm fired up.
Can't take it anymore.
Let's go to war.
Thank you.
That was President Jonathan Smith of New York Metro. Well, we're running late on time, and we've got some great speakers yet to go, so we'll move right ahead. President Smith talked about what our local is doing, not just internally, but outside in the community, and we made endorsements this year. One of the endorsements we made was for City Council in the 17th Congressional District. Unfortunately, he's being introduced today as the president of the South Bronx Community Association, but in the eyes of New York Metro, he's always number one. Our friend for many years, before he ran, during and after, here he is today, the great Julio Pabon.
Buenos dias, good morning. Well, by now it's good afternoon, right? First of all, I just want to say something. Look, I know as a community resident, I've been living here since I was 4 years old. And that building means a lot more to me than just going to mail something. When I was like 17, 18 years old, couldn't find work anywhere. I was every year employed, at least for Christmas when I couldn't get presents at home because we were too poor growing up, under poverty with one parent. I always knew that at least for Christmas I could buy my own presents because I was a postal worker for Christmas at that post office. They used to call me a Christmas temp. And for most of the local kids in this neighborhood, that was our way to make a buck for Christmas. Going in there, not being able to go to a museum, never leaving the South Bronx, but going into that building and just looking at it, and looking at the pieces of art in that building, that was our trip to the Natural Museum of History downtown. So that building means a lot to us, not just a place to go, mail something. The fact that today, some of the immigrants, which this borough has the highest concentration of immigrants moving in than any other borough, use that post office as a main way to stay alive, because immigrants use the post office. We use the post office in many ways, but immigrants use it in many more ways because that's the safest place to get a money order that's cheap, that's secured. It's the safest place to come and cash it. It's the safest place. Last week, my lady wanted to mail something to her son who's in the Army in Texas. He told her mom, send this through FedEx. She went across the street to PostNet to mail it through FedEx. $59. She says, no way, no way. She came back home. I said, go across the street to the post office. $22. He got it in 3 days. Post office is a service, people. As a community resident, I was so honored that I was asked to be part of this, because I really was going to be part of it anyway, because I live across the street, and every time I go to that post office, there's always a line. So where are people saying that people are not using the post office? Ask us, the people who live here. But you know what? They don't want to ask us. They don't want to ask us because they have a plan. And that plan is to get rid of the post office. And it started a long time ago with a president called Reagan, when he dismantled the air traffic controllers. And he went on in this anti-union busting movement. So the fact is that there is a movement underway to get this out of the way, and the post office should be privatized so that then there won't be no competition. So then someone who's going to mail a package to Texas will have to pay maybe $70. And that's the real deal. We, as activists who are here, I'm so honored that the fact that my name has been on just about every appeal that has been. But let me tell you something about activism. And I just got a lesson from it as I'm trying to run. I've never ran before in anything, and I was going around telling people I'm not a politician. I'm an activist who I just believe that no one in this district should run unopposed when they ran unopposed for the last 8 years, especially in the poorest district in the United States. So I decided to run because of that reason. But when you decide to do something, you always find a lot of interesting things. First of all, you would think that people would jump to it, right? Well, no, just like this meeting here today, I'm sure some of you organizers are disappointed in the number of people, but please don't be. Don't be. Because this community that you're in, the poverty that's in this community transfers itself into many ways. And just because you don't see a lot of people from the community here, doesn't mean that they're not interested, doesn't mean that they don't need the post office. So I want to first of all applaud all of the organizers that wanted to come here to the South Bronx and have this meeting. Thank you so much. Because you guys made it happen. You guys made it happen for lonely activists who lives there, who wants to keep that post office open, who didn't know how to do it except go to these hearings that they're having, which they don't tell people there's a hearing or there's a meeting, but you happen to stumble into it because I go mail something and I see a piece of paper on the wall that says there's going to be a hearing at a ridiculous time that most people cannot attend, but because God gave me the ability to be able to work out of my house, I can go to these meetings. So I've been to just about every hearing that they've had in the Bronx. But it's ridiculous because they do it at times that regular people can't attend. Here's a better one. Chuck will tell you this. We're at a meeting and the place is a little bit packed and this woman wants to speak, but she speaks in Spanish. Why? Hello, you're in the South Bronx. This is the largest concentration of Hispanics in all of New York. This is the only borough, the majority of the population in this borough is Latino. How are you going to have a public hearing and not have an interpreter? So me, that I was protesting against it, I wound up being the interpreter. So I told them, how can you guys really want to hear the community? You don't even have an interpreter here. You really don't want to hear the community. You just want to put on a piece of paper that you had this hearing so you can get away with whatever it is, the shenanigans you're doing. And I can go on and on in terms of all the creative things that we gave them advice that they can make to make money. But the reality is that Congressman Serrano already said it. When you have an organization that has to pay 75 years ahead of time into a pension fund, and you keep on blaming them for not having the money, that's like, that's like lopsided. That's like oxymoron type thing. That's like Twilight Zone type thing, And yet, they want us to believe that because the press is not picking up on this. But a lonely guy like myself who's been an activist all my life here, who has to deal not only with the people of the press not dealing with, sometimes your own friends who don't understand, attacking us on stuff because we're running, because we're doing this. We put all that to the side. But let me tell you something, the Postal Workers Union, I was so proud that when I decided to do this, now no one, no elected official, no other community activists here except some close friends who are real activists, not the armchair ones that don't live here but just want to come here and talk about it, but the real activists. These guys came through, and the first union that supported me was the New York Postal Workers Union. Thank you so much, fellas. And let me tell you how much that meant. Let me tell you how much that meant. I gotta tell you this part. First of all, you guys hooked us up with Berkeley, California. So South Bronx and Berkeley, California, Jackie, we created a bond coast to coast. Where else can you get that? We got two cities, two little communities working together because of you guys. Here's a better one. Because we had a poor campaign, and we've been working out there. We did an incredible job. We were out there hustling. We didn't have enough money, but we were there because no one should run unopposed. Well, just at the last minute, we got enough money to do a mailing. We went to every mailing house. They told us it's too late. You can't do a mailing. I said, but we got the money. They said, we can't, because we can't guarantee it's going to get through. Because normally you have to do this like 2.5 weeks ahead of time. This was 1 week before election. I said, but we got the money. We want to be able to send it out. They told us no. So we went back and we raised a little more money. I said, well, how about we send it first class? The mailing house told us still no. So I said, I took a risk. I got doing most of my life. I said, wait a minute. The Postal Workers Union endorsed me. maybe they're the ones handling the mail. I went back to this other mail house that took the risk, made me sign a waiver saying that I will not sue or whatever. The post office cannot guarantee the mail's gonna get there. I said, you know what, we got the money, do it anyway. I made a phone call, and let me tell you something. On that Saturday, I was walking, this 3 days before, I was walking on Saturday the streets, shaking hands with people, and the best sight was that I had seniors that were holding my piece because it came through in the mail. You guys made it happen. You guys took whatever it was and made it happen. So for people who talk about the post office not doing and not providing, that's a lie, folks. So we as activists have to continue to get together, and if someone from the South Bronx can get together with someone in Berkeley that we didn't know each other and we connected, if we can be able to do what we did and what we're doing by appealing and putting our names down without having an attorney, without having whatever, we're doing it, anything is possible, folks. Let's not let them, put this over on us. This post office is a service. It's a service, and we need to keep it alive. So thank you so much. I will be here. I will continue to be there until whenever, because what they want to do to this is exactly what Trump did over there. They want, this is the new South Bronx, by the way. Okay, this is the new South Bronx. And it has been rezoned across the street where the post office is, from 153rd Street down to 138th Street. Not where my house is, across the street, but on this side has been rezoned. Now you can build there 17 stories. So think of what they want to do to that post office. Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you, Julio Pabon. We have 2 more speakers, and this is about all of us coming together, and part of that is unity among unions, unity among postal unions. On March 24th, there was a national call for action against the elimination of the 6-day delivery. Unfortunately, the leadership of APW decided that it wasn't something they felt necessary to be a part of. But under the leadership of Jonathan Smith and Tiffany Foster, New York Metro was out there in support of our brothers and sisters in Branch 36 and their call. And today we're proud to have with us today the Executive Vice President of Branch 36 of the National Association of Letter Carriers, John Springman, to come up and say a few words.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm here today to represent the letter carriers of the Bronx and Manhattan. Personally, I was born and raised in the Bronx, delivered mail in the Bronx for 32 years. I continue to struggle for whatever concerns the Bronx and postal issues of the Bronx. Whenever we've had a call to action here in the Bronx, I've been on the steps of Bronx GPO prior and other rallies that we've had. When they closed the post office on Morris Park, I was at that rally to try and stop the closing of that station. Just want you all to know that the letter carriers are as committed as Metro to whatever concerns the Postal Service relative to the citizens, particularly of the Bronx, but of the entire United States. We stand united in all postal issues, the cause of the working people of America and the Postal Service in particular. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. And now, for our final speaker, again, when we leave, we're going to go out onto East 149th Street and walk west to Bronx GPO, where we have a permit for sound. And at that point, we would hand hold. People can get up and express themselves who haven't had a chance to talk today. I'd also like to thank some of the people who helped promote this today, the New York City Central Labor Council, Occupy 99 Pickets, Occupy Evolve, and we're here today too. Thank you to our sisters and brothers in Occupy. And I would really be remiss if I didn't introduce one of the leaders in our movement, someone who's been there from the fight, involved in the strike, and great postal strike of 1970, still an activist today, the president of the Mobilla Retirees Chapter of New York Metro, and sitting in the first row, Eleanor Bailey. And And batting cleanup is a good person to have before we go out to March from Community and Labor United for Postal Jobs and Services. A group that's been out there from the beginning fighting the good fight against station closings and anything that involves maintaining the postal service. And here also from my neighborhood of Chelsea, from the Chelsea Coalition on Housing, Rosa Maria Del Vittori.
Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. Sorry for I just got in, had issues with the 5. We all that live in the Bronx know that's not unusual. As Chuck said, I've been working in Chelsea for like 18 years now, doing tenant advocacy and organizing, first as Chelsea Housing Group, now as Chelsea Coalition on Housing. About 2 years ago, the first hearing was in Chelsea, and I found out about it through a tenant like 2 days before it happened. And there were like 10 of us there at first, so I was a little depressed. Obviously, it wasn't a very public meeting, but I was very impressed at the end because every single person spoke. And we were joined by the workers from the 15th Street Post Office, the Port Authority's Post Office, that has been on the list for closing from the beginning. So we started organizing around 15th Street, and then we, as a coalition and as an individual, I joined Community Labor United for Postal Jobs and Services. Ever since then, we have been active in the struggle to preserve our post office. It's our post office, it's our jobs, it's our communities. We will not stop fighting against the closing and the privatization of the post office. We were present in March, and we spoke at that big rally. But before that, we had our own little rally on 15th Street, and we marched from 15th Street with a youth group also that joined us. And we marched to 33rd Street to the larger rally, and we joined them there. We also participated August 24th. We were in DC. We were very welcome at the national headquarters of the National Association for Letter Carriers. They had provided vans to take us back and forth to the march. They provided food. There was a great meeting there. I think everybody that spoke there had great positions. We are continuing that relationship. We also went to LA for the AFL-CIO convention. We distributed information, and there was I have trouble reading, but we handed out flyers against the privatization, and we got at least 400 signatures there. So we are working locally, statewide, and nationally. We also met there with the local NALC. A carrier was taking a break on the street, and I got out the car and I gave him a flyer, and he says, "Is this for me?" I said, "Yes." And he says, "I'm going to make copies because we have a meeting tomorrow." I said, "Oh." So we got invited to their meeting. It's a great hall. It's a great chapter they have in LA. No wonder they got so many people out in March. So a resolution was passed at the convention in support of the post office and against the closings. We stand to lose too many jobs, and we cannot stop struggling. Going forward, we're going on October 5th and 6th to Detroit. I think all of you know what's going on in Detroit. Workers, all workers, not just postal workers, all workers are under attack in Detroit. They have decided to declare bankruptcy, and they have decided that they're going to pay with the pensions of the workers. So we're going to be there for the People's Assembly against the banks, and we're going to raise the issue of the post office. And I'm very pleased that you invited me to this meeting, and going forward, we will continue. And Miss Eleanor Bailey, I love you. I'm gonna go give you a hug right now.
thank you for being brief, but I got caught in the back of the room. Okay, so we actually have a few minutes. We came in on time, but I'd like everybody to think about gathering. We have some signs and banners and posters in the back. What we're going to do is we're going to exit the hospital on the Morris Avenue between 148th and 149th. We won't wait for the police if they're not there. We'll cross right there on over to the north side of 149th Street, and we'll head up to GPO. And everybody who hasn't had a chance to say something will have a chance to say something up there about this post office. Again, I'd also like to thank the great Eddie Kay, who is here today.